Podcast friends, check out my upcoming show list to see if your city is on my tour, and if not, leave a comment for where I should go next. If you have recently looked in the mirror and said, I'm gross, I don't like any of this that I am seeing. If you have recently eaten an entire family-sized bag of Cheetos to yourself while promising yourself that you would not have that third Pims and lemonade, and then you did anyway, this episode is for you. If you said, hey, today is a fasting day for me, and I was journaling about fasting, and that is my intention for today, and I know from listening to Lex Friedman's podcast that it's really important to keep with your commitment to yourself. And Andrew Huberman, he's a neuroscientist at Stanford, and he tells me that I'm going to be a pathetic blob of a person if I'm not consistent in my commitments to myself. So I am not going to have any of this lasagna. And then, it's the whole plate's gone, and now I'm getting a refill. These are oddly specific examples, but if you feel any of that, this is the episode for you, especially if you are a mom. But listen, I am hearing from more and more single young male listeners. They do exist. I have a picture. Did I ever send you that picture of Matt?
Oh, yeah.
Do we have that? Like, could we bring that up? I just want to show you. They're proof that this whole squad of very hip people showed up to my New York City show, and there were some women in the group, and yeah, there's Matt. Okay, good. and I said to this guy, very stylish man. I said to him, I'm sorry that the gals dragged you out to my show. He said, no, I'm a podcast listener. I listen to your podcast. So here we have photographic proof that Matt here is one of my hot boy boss listeners. He's wearing a very fabulous belt. Good, we got the picture, like so big. It's like Matt's eyeball is the whole thing on YouTube. And that's why I'm blowing up on YouTube, because of the quality of the graphics that we put on there.
He's disappeared into the abyss.
Nice. Yeah, now we can't even grab it. Fantastic.
All right.
You know what? It's like Bigfoot. My male followers who are just legion. I cannot provide you with photographic proof of them on YouTube, because we can't get the picture to not be like either just Matt's eyeball or off the screen. But so my single male listeners do exist. And
sorry, Matt.
and off of the screen here we have photographic proof. Why don't I have 1 million followers on YouTube? We cannot figure this out. So this episode will especially apply to you if you're a mom, but also for Matt and my fellow single male listeners, it will apply to you too. Because I would like to suggest that what you experience after you have kids as a woman is not exactly baby weight, in the sense that you just have to gain weight when you have a baby. It's just metabolically impossible not to. I don't think it's that. I think it's no village weight. I think that's what you're experiencing, is no village weight. It's what you need to be doing is burrowing under a weighted blanket and not coming out for about 4 hours. Curling up with a romance novel and blocking out the entire world. But you can't do that because you don't have a village. And unlike your ancestors, you don't get these mini breaks during the day when your kids are out with the shotgun hunting small animals for you to skin and cook up for dinner. Like that is what my grandfather did during the day. He and his siblings were just out all the time. So his mother did not see them very often. My homeowners association has policies against that. So I can't let my kids run around and do that. In village life, you have natural breaks throughout the day. In a village-less life, you have none of that. And for those of you who aren't moms, you're probably corporate slaves. So it's probably something similar. You're sitting in unnatural, artificial, fluorescent light. you've got an annoying boss and you can't escape it, and it's a piece of your soul dies every time you have to show up at this job. It's a similar thing. We're all living unnatural lives, and I am going to make the case in this episode that is probably one of the drivers of your cravings and your binge eating. If you are one of those people who has always been thin and who has never struggled with binge eating or drinking, man, congratulations to you. And I want to study you. There are people like that. That's wild to me. And Caitlin, you seem like do you ever binge eat? Sorry, you didn't know I was going to ask you this.
I binge eat sometimes. Like
really? Okay.
Yeah, especially sweets. Like
okay, but you've always been pretty thin, right?
For the most
more or
part.
less. Yeah. So there are some of us that we binge to the point that it's like I'm not
teetering on the edge
anymore. Yeah. And I have some before and afters. Caitlin, pull up that. Oh, let's see if we can get this picture up. Let's see if we can get one picture up. Here is a picture of me 18 years ago. Here we go. Okay, look this up on YouTube, jfonyoutube.com. I have a modesty bar over part of the picture because I don't know. Yeah, that shirt was really see-through. This is me 18 years ago. I weighed 40 pounds more than I do now. And so I just want to show you, now that I'm on YouTube, I can show you visual proof that I used to weigh more. And this is when I had one kid. 6 kids later, I weigh 40 pounds less. So I want to tell you guys it's possible. By the way, can you zoom in on my face, Caitlin? If you look up this on jfonyoutube.com, this is episode 177, I would think I had work done. If I were just a petty follower who hate followed me, I would be like, she has definitely had work done on her face. But I actually haven't, other than Botox. But my face looks really different there. But see, it's all just because I'm living my best life. I've gotten more relaxed, and I learned how to build a village, and I learned how to accept myself and stop criticizing myself all the time. And I swear it made my face look better. That you're not any differences you see in those two pictures. It's not filler. It's a little bit of Botox, but Botox doesn't do that much. No. And I had it months ago, so it's not, okay, whatever. This is a long introduction. As usual, we will get to the main topic in the second half of the show. In the first half, we talk about intro topics. I've got a bunch of good stuff to cover, including, for those of you who are parents, you need to let your kids be a little more independent a little earlier. We will talk about that. I have seen some good results from that. It really helps me just relax in my life that I am able to, that I have pretty independent kids, and that is because my husband and I had no idea what we were doing when we were first, beginning in our parenting journey. We had no idea what we were doing, and we just winged it, but it has actually paid off pretty well. So those will be the topics today. That main topic of the baby weight topic will be in the second half of the show. Welcome, new listeners. This is the Jen Fulwiler Show. I am a stand-up comic, best-selling author, and mom of 6. This is the podcast where you learn the art of the village hustle. That's being a hot girl boss who knows that love and family and community are the foundations of all true success. Welcome also to my hot boy boss listeners. Caitlin White is our fabulous producer, and we publish new episodes every single Wednesday morning without fail. And my Austin, Texas showcase show is now on sale. Caitlin, can you make a note to make sure that is in the show notes? That link will be on there. Yeah, I don't think that is on my website. Okay, so we will put it in the show notes because I don't think it's on my website. But it's in December. December 6th. December 6th is my Austin Showcase show. It's me and some of my hand-picked favorite other comics. The show moves quickly. We do 10 to 20-minute sets each. We keep it clean so you can invite anyone. It is so much fun. It's one of my favorite things I do in my career, and it will sell out. 100% it'll sell out. So that is Austin on December 6th. It is so much fun. I don't think it's on my website, so we will put that link in the show notes. You guys can get early access. And then I am filming my stand-up comedy special special in Houston on November 15th. The first show is mostly sold out. There are a handful of individual tickets left. And then the second show is mostly sold, but there are more tickets left for the second show. And we do have that up on the website. Caitlin, a lot is happening over there at your producer desk. Are you able to play the jingle so that people know where to find this information?
Jen Fulwiler is hitting the road on the maternal instinct tour, so watch where she goes. Just go to jfcomedytour.com, jfcomedytour.com.
So you guys will get first access to those Austin show tickets because I don't think they're on my website yet. And don't forget that I live and die by your iTunes reviews, your Apple Podcast reviews. I read each one personally. They make my day. They make me so happy. So go leave a review on Apple Podcasts. When people meet me in person, they often reference the podcast review that they left, and I know exactly what they're talking about. I can finish their sentence. I can say, oh, yeah, you fly the military helicopter. Oh, yeah, you're the one who just said you had your third baby. So I mean, I have an encyclopedic knowledge of my Apple Podcast reviews. Okay, let us begin with talking about no fear parenting. I think you guys are controlling your kids a little too much. There is a lot of controlling behavior among moms. I guess dads do it too, actually. And it is based on fear. Controlling behavior is always based on fear. If you are being super controlling, let's say you're dating someone, you're being very controlling with your boyfriend, it's because you're afraid. You're afraid you'll lose him or he'll mess something up or whatever. If you are very controlling about your appearance, you would never leave the house without makeup, or your outfit has to be just so, or you hate yourself if you're not at the exact way. It's fear. You think you won't be loved. You think you won't be worthy of life. You think you won't be accepted. Fear. Fear always drives control. And neat freaks are like this, and I have my own behaviors that I can relate to. This is no criticism at all. I'm not a neat freak at all, but a lot of times if you are really not just like you like a tidy house, but it's a little crazy, you're yelling at people about how they fold the blanket. You're like, that throw pillow does not go there. If you have ever talked to anyone in your family about where certain objects live, and you're like, that candle doesn't live there. That throw pillow doesn't live there. That pencil doesn't live there. Listen, nobody in your house wants to live. If you are bringing that, you got to let it go. You're being very controlling, and it's out of fear. It's because you have unresolved trauma, and you feel like if your house is messy, you are not safe. You associate tidiness and cleanliness and a perfect physical environment with safety. And that is why you're always talking to people about where objects live. These objects don't live anywhere, guys. It just doesn't matter. It does not matter if the purple throw pillow is on the chair. It doesn't matter if the pencil is in the other box. It does not matter if the blanket gets put here versus there. It doesn't matter if that mug is in this cabinet versus that cabinet. I cannot encourage you strongly enough to go deep on that. And again, I'm not criticizing you because I have my own behaviors that are based on not feeling safe in the world. That's how your childhood trauma expresses itself. It's the things that you obsess about, that you get really fixated on them because you subconsciously think that you will not really be safe, that it is some kind of sign that life is amiss and you are not taken care of if this is not situated. So it's good to look at what among our behaviors are based on fear. Also, like being controlling of your children's appearance, that is also based on fear, that you're worried that they will not succeed in life, that they will not be accepted if they don't dress this way, if your girls don't have their hair a certain way, if they experiment with their wardrobe, if they go through a goth phase. That's all based on fear. And let me just tell you, you'll have a physical glow up. I'm telling you, if you can let go of these fears that drive your life, you physically, you will glow up. Pull up that picture again, Caitlin. Pull up this picture of me. For those of you, which is all of you, who never look up my YouTube channel and who only listen on audio, you're missing out. jfonyoutube.com. Okay, so this picture of me with the modesty bar over. Sorry, guys. I don't know why I wore a see-through tank top for that. Zoom in on my face, Caitlin, because this is the face of someone who's living in fear. And the weight, yes, too, because we'll go into that actually in the second topic. That this is baby. I had one kid at this time. So I thought that I had gained what is just baby weight, that you just have to gain weight when you have kids. But a lot of this is I had so many unresolved fears, and I was trying to control everything that somehow, like, it made my lips smaller. I look like I've had my lips done. I haven't. And like my brows look really different, and that's not a Botox thing. That is a letting go of fears thing. Man, I was trying to control the whole world. I felt like I had the weight of the world on my shoulders. And okay, Caitlin, that's good. Thank you. jfonyoutube.com is where you can see that picture. And then I let go. I turned my kids over to God. I turned my husband over to God. I turned myself over to God. It was just like, these kids are going to turn out how they're going to turn out. There's the famous twin study, which I've referenced before, that when you take identical twins, so genetically, they have the exact same genetics, and you separate them, they were separated at birth by adoption, they tend to turn out very similarly to each other, down to the cars they drive, down to the physical appearance of their spouses. God makes people a certain way. And of course, you can influence them to be their best selves. And of course, extreme situations like extreme neglect or abuse or mental illness on the part of the parents, of course, that impacts things. And the twin studies did show that where there were cases of mental illness in the parents or serious neglect or abuse or whatever, that did show different outcomes in life. But for the most part, your kids are going to turn out how they're going to turn out. And if God designed your kid to be a Bitcoin bro, who is he's just going to Tahoe with the boys, dropped out of college to work on his Bitcoin business, made $1 million and lost it, and talks about how Andrew Tate is a top G. And I mean, look, if God designed your kid to be that way, you can maybe influence a little bit. Maybe you can get him off of Andrew Tate, but you're not going to make him a monk if that's just kind of not what his genetic, if that's not how that kid was meant to turn out. And my parents learned that the hard way. My dad said later in life, he said that he really regretted not having more kids. And he should have, because I was just not what my parents expected. And don't get me wrong, my parents loved me and they supported me. But both of my parents were popular in high school, and they were both sporty. My mom's whole adult life, she has played tennis. My mom is kind of the total package. She was a mathematician, Phi Beta Kappa Honor Society math major, just incredible math brain. Calculus is like just a breeze to her. It's just nothing. Worked in finance, like built a company she was just the bookkeeper and built it into this like multi-million-dollar business as the CFO. Went from bookkeeper to CFO. But then she's also like good looking and sporty. I mean, she's kind of like the uber woman, like the perfect woman. So when my parents thought back on their high school memories, they were like, we can't wait for our kid to go to the sock hop and wear her poodle skirts and hang out at the soda fountain with her 15 friends when she's not getting asked to the dance by boys, she'll be jogging. I'm not sure exactly what they imagined, but they got none of it. I was a goth introvert who wanted to do nothing but sit in my room and write tortured novels. I had no friends. I was so not popular. I was the opposite of popular. And I was so not sporty and not physically active that one time I saw a science fiction movie about a guy who was a brain in a jar, and I was jealous. My father played football at Texas A&M, and he was on the baseball team. My mother is a lifelong tennis player who engaged in sports as well. My grandmother was on the tennis team of her college. I come from sporty, popular people. There was a horrible genetic mishap when I was born, and nobody in my family knew what to do with me. I come from multi-generational, socially skilled, sporty, popular people. And this goth weirdo who just sat enclosed in her room and wrote tortured novels was nothing that my family had ever seen. I mean, all four of my grandparents were really engaging. Like my grandfather on my mom's side of the family, he once came in second in a dancing contest, either singing or dancing. He came in second in a dancing contest, and the guy who came in first was a local guy named Frank Sinatra, who was from his area. So, I mean, this was my grandfather dancing in contest. Can you imagine me doing a dancing contest? But this is the child that my parents expected. They were like, she'll be, when she's not doing dancing contests, we just hope that she doesn't play so many sports, that she's on so many different varsity teams, that it impacts her stellar academic performance. And I'm like, I'm going to listen to a long-haired anemic man scream about death while I write my novel about a vampire. My parents, they never expressed disappointment in me. And I appreciate that. But it was, their curiosity was there. You know, like how does this, she has no friends? Like, it just seems like.
Not one?
Yeah. And then it's like, I would meet friends, but they were totally insane. You know, like keep in mind, I did move a lot, and I was an only child, and so my social circles were constantly starting over. But then, you know, I'd bring home a friend, and they'd be like, "Oh, thank God, our daughter has a friend. Oh, this is what a relief." So I wonder if this friend would like to, you know, encourage her to go to the sock hop and hang out at the soda fountain. Those are my parents' references from the boomer era. And my friend would be like, "I worship the Egyptian sun god Ra." And my parents were just like, wow. So she also only attracts crazy people. Okay. And I think my parents did to some extent to like make peace with that, because I'm a very strong-willed person. So they made the mistake for some years, and I want you to listen closely if you're making your kids do activities that they are not expressing interest in. They, for example, made me play sports because they had read in Parade magazine, which used to be in newspaper, the Sunday newspaper. It would be some garbagey entertainment stuff that everybody, so they'd have parenting advice in there. And the parenting advice in Parade magazine was that you have to have your kids play sports in order for them to learn how to. Why do people think their kids need to play sports? So they can communicate in groups or learn teamwork?
They learn teamwork and sportsmanship.
Okay. I've always said, like, have siblings. I have 6 kids. We live in a 1,900 square foot house. I'd have more kids than you can afford. And then your kids will not need to play sports because you will all be cramped into a very small house. They'll learn teamwork very quickly. They will learn sportsmanship very quickly. They have someone steal some of their toys. They'll learn how to use a baseball bat very quickly. Listen, they'll learn how to share and cooperate. You don't have to force your kids into sports. You just have more kids than you can afford and cram them all into a small house, and it'll work itself out. Now, I was an only child, but still, I mean, I went to school. I had to deal with kids every single day. Like, you don't think I learned teamwork and sportsmanship? So anyway, I hated sports. I hated it so much, but they made me play softball. So I would intentionally collapse during every game. I'm not kidding. We might have pictures of this somewhere. I would lie down on the field and I would not get up. And I would just be like, I can't get up. And they'd be like, so this is in the middle of a game. Like, we're in the middle of a game. Now, I wouldn't, because I knew that other kids on the team, their parents cared and they cared about the outcome of this game. I wouldn't do it if I wouldn't do it if I were playing shortstop, okay? But when I was in the outfield, I was like, look, this is girls softball. None of these little girls are going to be hitting the ball back here. I think, and if they do, they're so weak. I mean, it'll be like, pop, hit the ball. I mean, I'll have a good 30 seconds to get up, dust myself off, and then field this ball. This is girls' sports. I mean, let's be real about what it is. And my parents were mortified. Again, keep in mind, my dad played college level football, and so did my grandfather. And actually so did my grandmother, and my mom, again, very sporty. So they were, it was just something else to see this kid lying down and refusing to get up in the middle of an active game. And then being recalcitrant about it. Now, I am actually still on my own side. I am on my child self's side. I'm like, great point, 9-year-old Jen. Honestly, I really see that. I think I agree with that decision. I think you made a great call there. So did it benefit me at all to be forced to play sports? No. I mean, literally, it did not help me at all. Now, depending on what you think of me in this podcast, I could be making a point counter to the point I'm trying to make, because if you hate me and would never want your child to turn out like I have turned out, then you might be like, I'm getting my kid in an extra sport. Like, they already played soccer. I will have them play cricket tomorrow. Like, that's in season. We'll get that done, because we cannot have our kids turning out like Jen Fulwiler. Perhaps a better example is my own children are turning out well. And, we sort of forced a couple of our kids to play sports, and it didn't go well. It went about as well as it did with me. They didn't like it. They didn't show an affinity for it. My kids are analytical like I am, in a certain way that makes following the rapidly moving rules of sports, that is not a natural thing for us. We tend to be deep thinkers. We tend to be overthinkers. And so, the idea of a ball is flying through the air and you have to make 7 different calculations at once, it takes us a while to get into that rule system. What I'm trying to tell you is that one of my children one time tackled a soccer ball and just threw themselves on top of it and wouldn't move. And the other kids were kicking them. And then my kid was crying because they were being kicked because they were on top of a ball and it's a soccer game. That is how it turns out when you force your kids into activities that they do not want to be in. I think, hang on, let me hit the, I'm interrupting myself, but it's for a good reason, special sound effect. Here's the other thing, is that when you are trying to control the outcome of your kids' personalities and your kids' lives, it exhausts you. You are tired because you know how it is when the vibe's just not there. The magic is just not there for this activity and for this sport. It's just not gelling. And so you're getting up at 7:00 in the morning on a Saturday and you're driving over to this sports facility and it's muddy and it's raining and you'd rather be asleep and whatever. It's one thing if your kid has shown an affinity for this sport, if your kid seems to be good at it, if they have potential to be good at it, or if they're terrible at it, but they really love it. They're gelling with the team, not the best player, but they're bringing the snacks and really motivating everyone. If any of that is going on, it's great. But if your kid is just kind of lukewarm about it, not showing a particular talent for this, not particularly loving it, and you're just making them do it, and then you have to be there and your spouse has to be there. I'm telling you, that will wear you down. One of the things we're going to get to in the main topic is about how the unnatural lives that we are living don't give us as many breaks as we need. We don't get as much respite as we need. And so it's a really big deal. When you use your time, when you book yourself up with a use of time that is not adding value to anyone's life and is in fact draining your energy, in modern life, that is actually a really big deal. It's a big deal for you and it's a big deal for your kids. School is exhausting, you know? School is, it's good. I like that my kids are in school. We've homeschooled and then now our kids are in school. I like both, and school is great. My kids are very happy to be in school, but it is exhausting. I mean, they get up at 6 o'clock in the morning. They're not home till 4 o'clock p.m. And so when you're adding things on the weekend, they got to be somewhere and it's a schedule. If there is not a real strong cost-benefit ratio there, you are dragging down yourself physically, mentally, emotionally, and you're doing the same thing with your kids for just no payoff. No payoff. So the reason we do these kind of things is because we're tempted to parent out of fear. We're so worried about the outcome of our kids. If I don't make my kids go to this thing, if I don't make my kids be in this activity, if I don't make my kids play the violin, how will they turn out? Do you know how many adults I know whose type A parents made them play the violin and it just got them nothing? Like they are just as, they're just living lives that you're like, I don't think playing the violin was a big factor in where you have ended up. It's like they're either successful or they're not, but it's not like, dude, that guy has a 10-figure net worth because his mom made him play the violin. What has that ever gotten anyone? That it's something that type A parents are really into. They really obsess about instruments. And again, if your kid has a talent for it, if they love it, I'm not talking to you. But if your kid is not that into it and you're forcing them to play it, it's like, I'm telling you, it gets them nothing in life. It really doesn't benefit them at all to force them to do a musical instrument that they're not into. As part of my lack of interest in anything in life, I also was not interested in music, in addition to friends, sports, and socializing, dancing, anything. Music was, I liked listening to my goth CDs, but, listening to the Pixies' Doolittle on repeat, Tori Amos, all of that. But I had no interest in like creating music. But so my parents made me play an instrument. And of course, because my life is a sitcom, all of my little friends got the cutest instruments because we had a band director who was he was an artiste and wanted to have a great band, which is wonderful, but you didn't get to choose your instrument. You would try out, he would tell you what instrument. All of my friends walked out with, I got the piccolo, I got the flute, I got the clarinet, I got the French horn. Do you know how heavy a French horn is? And I was already bigger than any of the other kids. I certainly wasn't the thinnest, but I was also just the tallest. I was way taller than all the other kids. I made the horrible mistake of getting a perm in the 80s. So it kind of looked like I had a fur coat on my head. It was such a bad perm. So my hair was like big. I was big in every way. And now I had to carry around this massive French horn case, which was heavy and huge. And it was just like, I just looked like such an ogre walking through the halls. And you know what's crazy is my nickname was already Bigfoot. That's already what the bullies called me. And then like to be hunched over carrying my massive French horn case. Okay, well, obviously Jen's childhood trauma is like fueling this episode. I'm like, don't make your kids do anything they don't want to do, especially not play the French horn. But my parents just thought that if you're going to be successful in life, you have to play an instrument. You just have to, because they were trying to control me into that success. To their point, maybe I wouldn't be in stand-up comedy if I had, stuck with that instrument. Maybe I'd be an accountant. Maybe I'd have a real job that actually would, brought in a stable income. So maybe they were right. But but look, I think I'm actually mainly coming at this from the angle of you guys are exhausting yourselves when you're controlling. When you are wasting time out of your life in your family, wasting time out of everyone's life that nobody can get back about where that blanket lives and where that mug lives. When you are making your kids play instruments and do sports that they are very lukewarm about, you are wearing yourself down. You are expending energy that you really don't need to expend. And in fact, it's a lose-lose, because when you're controlling with your kids, the more controlling you are, the less they learn to trust their own gut instinct, the less they learn to develop their own sense of what is my passion in life? What am I good at? What is my temperament? I have noticed that the people who feel most lost in their 20s and 30s, like they don't know who they are. What kind of temperament do I have? Who even am I? What do I want to do with my life? What is my blue flame? Very, very, very often, they had pretty controlling parents. They had parents who had a pretty cookie cutter idea of who they needed to be and what they needed to be involved in and how they needed to dress, and even down to what their hobbies should be. And then these people get out into adulthood and they're starting from scratch. They are a decade behind kids who had a little more leeway to figure out who they are and what they are into. What's interesting is, looking back, it was very clear from early on, like when I was 8, all I wanted to do was write. That is all I ever wanted to do was write. And I honestly think if I hadn't had so much time wasted in sports and music and just like anything, like if I had just been allowed to Stephen King it starting from age 8, I'm dead serious, guys. I think I could have actually written, published, and made some money on a novel by the time I was 15 or 16, because I had that desire for it, but I just wasn't allowed to develop that. And again, I don't blame my parents. That was the standard. I mean, who would have supported that in the 80s? Yes. Why don't you let your goth daughter just sit in a dark room in front of a computer screen and type for hours at a time and have no friends and never be involved in anything? I mean, I understand why my parents didn't get there, but I think it actually would have been the best move to let me play around with that and then have them just guide me and say, okay, well, you did spend 10 hours just in front of the computer screen typing yesterday. So do you want to do something different today? Or, do you want to explore want to try to have friends or not be goth? No? Okay. All right. Well, and so this is something, because my husband and I knew nothing about parenting going into it, because we were both only children. And his mom was an overwhelmed single mother who had to work 2 and sometimes 3 jobs. She did not have the option of being controlling. And she was like the most ADHD scatterbrained person I've ever met. Wonderful. I love my mother-in-law so much. God rest her soul. Incredible woman, but very scatterbrained, very ADHD. When she would come over and help us by cleaning and unloading the dishwasher, she would take a dirty rag, she'd like scrub a pet stain off the carpet and then wipe the counters with it. And that actually happened. She would take all the silverware out of the silverware thing in the dishwasher, and she would just turn it upside down and just dump it into our drawers. And she'd be like, Jennifer, I unloaded the dishwasher for you. So my husband did not have a controlling parent. And then I felt over controlled. So I brought a very laissez-faire attitude to parenting. And so starting around age 8, we would really just start collaborating with our kids, honestly, especially the younger ones. We'd start collaborating with them and say, well, what do you want to do? Do you want to try soccer? And a lot of times it's, oh, yes, that sounds great. So we'd do a season of soccer, and they would start complaining about going to the games. They didn't understand the rules. And we always ended up on the team that would lose every time, like 0-7 record every time. And so we would talk to the kids. We would say, would you like to try to improve? I mean, do you is there a love for this sport here? Do you want to get private lessons? Is this of interest to you? Or is it just, it's not doing it for you? And with all of our kids, they would decide, yeah, this is just not doing it for me. And that is how my 10-year-old is obsessed with history. He knows more about history than anyone. His high school sister was doing a map of ancient Greece. And my 10-year-old walks up. He didn't learn any of this in school. He's self-taught. He just walks up. He's like, no, you put Peloponnesus in the wrong place because because Sparta's right near there, and after Sparta invaded, there was this whole thing with that border, and so it's sort of near Macedonia, but Macedonia was across the mountains. I'm probably misconveying that because I don't know this stuff, but you get the idea. This kid knows so much about ancient maps and ancient history. He could draw a map of antiquity Greece and get details, cities off the top of his head. And that is because he was not spending time in sports and musical instruments and just things that he was not interested in. So by age 10, he has a very deep knowledge of something that he was interested in because his time wasn't being wasted another direction. And so a similar thing is happening with a lot of my kids because starting around age 8, we collaborated with them. I don't mean to say that we just let them do whatever they wanted 24/7, but it was more of a dialogue rather than us telling them constantly what to do. It would, even when it came to food, again, you can't do this with little kids, but starting around age 10, 12, it would be like, look, let's talk about this. You're constantly eating this one food. Let me talk to you about bone development, about lifelong, like you could be a hunchback if you don't, I probably shouldn't be putting these fears in my kids. But I'd be like, seriously, if you don't start eating more protein, these are going to be the repercussions. So how can we work together to find some protein that you would like? It's about collaboration, not control. Control is always based on fear. Collaboration is based on love and communion and communication. So if you find that you are controlling anyone in your life, your kids, or it could be daughter-in-law, son-in-law, your spouse, or you're young and dating, you're kind of controlling with your boyfriend or girlfriend, that's based on fear. And it's probably based on unresolved trauma. You need to switch from control to collaboration, especially with your kids. Talk to that kid. Don't just tell them what to do. Listen. Ask them why they don't want to play that musical instrument. What would they like to do instead? And they might not initially know the answer, but if you just give them some free time, give these poor kids a bunch of weekends to do nothing. And yes, for the first 4 or 5 weekends, they will literally do nothing. They'll just scroll TikTok. But eventually they will get bored of it. Trust me. I've let my kids watch so many screens that we have reached that point where it's like, I can't look at TikTok anymore. I'm so bored of this. And then they start painting. They start decorating their room. They start putting up cool light fixtures and things in their rooms. They start making t-shirts. They will have to have a few weekends of just doing nothing and not being productive to kind of get it out of their system. But watch them start discovering their talents when you stop controlling and start collaborating. Okay, that's enough on that subject. Let's get to the main topic. Before we do, don't forget to leave a review on Apple Podcasts. I read each one personally. Don't forget to get your tickets for my Houston show where I am filming my stand-up comedy special on November 15th. It's a huge deal. You can get those tickets and all other cities, Atlanta, Florida. I know Florida is a state and not a city. Salt Lake City, jfcomedytour.com. Get your tickets. I love to meet you guys. I love it when you come out to shows. All right, baby weight. There is this idea out there that when you have kids, you are just going to gain weight, you have to gain weight, and there's no two ways about this. I would like to suggest that it's no village weight. I would like to suggest that when you have a life with no support system, you are not getting the micro breaks throughout the day that you need. Hit the sound effect that we had our best men spend 12 weeks working on to be the perfect sound effect for Jen's evolutionary theory corner. Oh, it's time for Jen's evolutionary theory corner. And I think that sound effect turned out just perfect. I think that's exactly what we're looking for. Life was harder in any other time period in human history. In a recent episode, I was telling you I interviewed elderly relatives in, it was like 2003, 2004. So these are people who were born around 1900. So I have personal one-on-one conversations with people who lived before electricity, before the car, and before the plane. These are people who were old enough to remember the first time they ever saw a plane in the sky. So they go way back. And these people, one of the things they said about life back in the day.
Sorry.
Oh, one of the things they said about life back in the day is that life was harder, much harder before electricity and all of that. But it was more predictable. My grandfather said that all the time, that life on the farm in, let's say, 1922, no electricity, no car, it was very hard. It was bone-crushingly hard, the amount of work they had to do. He literally walked, you hear about, back in my day, we walked 5 miles. He literally did walk like 6 or 7 miles to school and back, and did farm chores, did homework by a kerosene lamp. But he said it was actually less stressful because there was a predictability to it. The cows needed to be milked at the same time every day, and the cows were always there. And whatever you do on a farm. I've been, my farmer ancestors would be so sad at how disconnected I am from like the natural world. I don't know what you do on a farm. You slop hogs, and the hogs are always there, and you slop them at the same time. And the other things that you do on a farm, whatever that may be, there was a rhythm, a predictability to it. And as we said in the previous episode, you had nightfall. And that was built-in rest. You had to rest. There just wasn't enough light. If you've ever tried to do anything fun by candlelight, it sucks. Like you just get tired. Candlelight is not enough to really keep yourself engaged and awake. Even me, the consummate night owl, when I have no artificial light and I'm only doing something by candlelight only, even I cannot stay up too late because the darkness is just oppressive. So you would have this sort of built-in rest. So life was less stressful. And so now if you are a mom and you don't have a support system and you don't have a village, there's a little bit of a rhythm to your day. The baby might wake up roughly at the same time, but there is this lack of predictability of what kind of suffering you will experience today. Will it be a diaper explosion? Will the kids be fighting all day? Will the baby not sleep? And again, because you don't have a village, your grandma isn't sitting right next to you and can't hold the baby while you stop the 2 toddlers from hitting themselves with naked Barbies. That it's all on you. So it's like a new form of torture every minute. And that will uniquely wear you down and deplete your dopamine like nothing else. And my theory is that is a key factor in where quote unquote baby weight comes from, because your serotonin levels, your dopamine levels are at rock bottom all the time because you never get a break. And the suffering that you experience is unpredictable. Now, this brings us to the most delightful part of the podcast, because speaking of things that boost dopamine, it's like black tar heroin for me to make fun of male thought leaders who give people advice on how to live. It's my favorite thing. It's the air that I breathe. So, Caitlin, let's pull up. So Joe Rogan he's playing this audio that what's funny is I have this audio on my Spotify. There's a playlist called Fearless Motivation. There's another one that's like something like fear less, work harder. And I do love that stuff. I mean, I love these guys. That's how I know so much about what they're saying, because I follow them all. And I do like them. I like their motivation. I like their energy level. But they are so funny to me because I think of like myself and my podcast listeners, and I'm like, you couldn't live a day in our lives. You would die. You'd die. One day in our lives. You'd tap out. You would die. So, this is just my favorite thing. Okay, so I was aware of the audio that you're about to hear Joe Rogan play, because it's on my Fearless Motivation playlist. So let's take a listen, friends. This is standard wisdom. These people are getting 1 million views to what they do. Not me. Oh, this episode on YouTube, 80 views, guaranteed. But it'll be 80 million. If a man tells you something useless that doesn't actually work for anyone who has any kind of community in their life, who has any kind of people who are dependent on them, 80 million views. But Jen, here, I give you real wisdom and real practical tips, and I'll get 80 views. Okay, let's listen to Rogan here, Caitlin.
There's a video that I 100% legitimately play in my mind when I'm tired. I say good. Listen to this video. You ever heard this? It's amazing.
It's one of my guys that worked for me. He was one of my guys that worked for me. He would call me up or pull me aside with some major problem, some issue that was going on. And he'd say, boss, we got this and that and the other thing. And I'd look at him and I'd say, good. And finally one day he was telling me about some issue that he was having, some problem. And he said, I already know what you're going to say. I said, well, what am I going to say? He said, you're going to say good. He said, that's what you always say. When something is wrong and going bad, you always just look at me and say good.
Pause it.
And I said, well, yeah, when things are going bad.
Okay, so so far so good. I like this premise. I agree with this premise, and that's why when I was listening to it on my Fearless Motivation soundtrack, I thought, I like this actually. That when something goes wrong, you say good, because we certainly do believe that anytime any kind of negative event happens in life, anything from stubbing your toe to a horrific tragedy, something good can come from it. That is the whole business that God is in. God is a love-generating machine. So even the worst things, something equally good will come from it. So I was like, hey, these motivation bros, they're onto something with this one. I like it. I like the sound of this. And then this guy starts giving examples of the kind of big problems that you might face in life. Caitlin is a single mother, so I'm sure she'll find this super relatable. Just exactly the kind of problems that you're facing, that I'm facing, and that my podcast listeners are. Let's listen to the examples in this good Fearless Motivation little soundtrack. So what are some examples here? All right, go ahead, Caitlin.
There's going to be some good that's going to come from it. Didn't get the new high-speed gear we wanted? Good. Didn't get promoted? Good. More time to get better. Oh, mission got canceled? Good. We can focus on our law. Didn't get funded. Didn't get the job you wanted. Got injured. Sprained my ankle. Got tapped out.
Sprained my ankle.
Got beat. Good. Unexpected problems? Good. We have the opportunity to figure out a solution. That's it. When things are going bad, don't get all bummed out. Don't get startled. Don't get frustrated. If you can say the word good.
You get the idea. So if you look up Fearless Motivation on Spotify, I think that's where it's in one of those playlists. We're done with that clip, Kate. You can listen to the whole thing, and they actually give other examples. Didn't get the promotion. Wasn't able to finish your workout. The gym closed early. I mean, I am just thinking about what my podcast listeners deal with, because I meet you guys after shows. I meet my Patreon members, and it is comical, the contrast, because my Patreon members and my podcast listeners, they will come up to me and they'll say, hey Jen, thanks for your podcast. It's just, I have 2 severely special needs kids. They need round the clock treatment. It's, we love them to pieces. They're so wonderful, but they do require round the clock care. I haven't slept in 8 years, and the government funding for our home health assistant, who really helped me just catch up on sleep and take care of the children, we just lost that government funding, and we're broke, and my husband is working 3 jobs and I'm working 2 jobs, and we're just trying. I enjoy listening to your podcast as I'm figuring this out. And then I pull up Fearless Motivation. He's like, didn't get the high speed gear you wanted. Oh, what a champion. What a champion that he's able to say good to that. Why don't you go live a day in that podcast, listeners? Like, why don't you sit in the house with her severely special needs children and the funding she just lost, and she and her husband have to figure out how to take care of them round the clock. And I'm not saying it's not the right thing to say good. It is, because and this is actually a true example, with that gal losing the funding, I do believe that good will come out of it somehow. I know it's easy for me to say, but I do believe that there's a plan for our lives, and the more you pour love into situations, it really does conquer fear. That is in the Bible somewhere. It's like, page 381. I don't know. I do believe that this is all true. When you pour love into situations, it conquers the fear and it allows for good outcomes, and you really can say good. But I think it's so comical, these motivation guys, because you know what they have that my podcast listeners and I don't? They have control over their schedules. See, here's an example from my life that takes us back to the baby weight thing. This weekend, I was back in something that is closer to the life I was living when my kids were little. Life was just crazy. I had 2 shows in back-to-back nights in 2 different cities, and then I came home. We needed to decorate for Halloween. I had to take my kids to a bunch of different places. It was all good. I'm not complaining about any of it, but it was one of those things where I could not recharge my batteries, which for me is sitting and journaling endlessly. This is a theme in this podcast. Jen likes to sit in dark rooms in front of computer screens. And it's really actually all she wants to do in life. But that is how I recharge my batteries. And I went from Thursday night, drive to Dallas, do a show, drive back. Thank God Caitlin was driving. But still, it's a lot, to go it's 3.5 hours, do the show, 3 hours back, and then next day, drive to San Antonio, perform in San Antonio, drive back, and then next day, all this family stuff all day, and then next day, all this family stuff all day. And it reminded me of when the kids were little. Now that my kids are older, I tend to have more flexibility, more kind of time to myself, more time to recharge and plan and think and get in a good mindset space about my problems and say good and listen to my Fearless Motivation tracks. But I didn't have that this weekend. You cannot imagine the number of calories that I consumed this weekend. My pancreas is about to just run away. I mean, it was all sugar. It was all carbs. The Pims and lemonade, it was like there was an endless fountain of Pims and lemonade going directly into my mouth. It's the only alcohol I will really drink anymore. But I will say I make up for not drinking anything else. And by the way, I am tired of these bottles of Pims that they always make it look like you've had more to drink than you have. It's like it looks like I drank half a bottle, but I did not. It's the shape of to the untrained eye, it could look like I drank half a bottle of Pims in a relatively short amount of time, but I did not. It's the bottle. It's an optical illusion. You guys don't understand the concept of optical illusion. I drank a lot of Pims and lemonade, guys, and I recently found out there was a chart of most sugary beverages, and this is me. This is how I'm wired. Pims and lemonade, uno. Number 1, it is more sugary than a pina colada. It's more sugary than a Mai Tai. Of course, I found the one that is like you take a bag of granulated white sugar, you tear it open, and you just go, like you put a funnel into your mouth, and you wash it down with some syrup and some honey. That's the drink that I like to drink. And so I had a ton of that. And then I made a family-sized box of macaroni and cheese. I ate the whole thing. I was actually going to ask the kids, like, hey, to send out a group text, does anyone want mac and cheese? And I was like, I think I might want this whole thing myself. And I did. I ended up eating the whole thing. I had chips and queso. It didn't end. I mean, I could just go on and on. I made chili con queso. I don't normally binge that much anymore. Normally, I'm pretty good. I do my intermittent fasting. That's how I am 40 pounds down from that picture that you guys saw earlier. I am, in general, I'm in a fairly good routine when it comes to staying at the weight that I like. And I think part of it is because my kids are older now, I have a little bit more predictability in my schedule. And I have space to recharge my batteries in the way that works for me, which is sitting in a silent, dark room with a glowing screen. I'm not even kidding. I mean, that is, there's like no end to how much I could do that. But for you, it might be different. When I had young children, and I even had a little more of a support system than most people do because my mom did live nearby and she had a day job. She wasn't able to help me during the day, but she did quite a bit to help. I can't even imagine having young children. If my mom hadn't been nearby, I would have weighed 300 pounds because listen, constant exposure to repeated loud noise and sleep deprivation are both forms of torture banned by the Geneva Convention. This is true. Look it up. So you are living with little tyrants who have no regard for international law if you are living with young children. Like they're literally torturing you. Like the Geneva Convention bans everything your young children are doing on a daily basis. Now, if you have a support system, it all works out. If you lived in a village, you would have your cousins and your nieces and your aunts and your grandma around to help you with all of this. But because you don't have a support system, all of this is on you. You are receiving the brunt of all of it. And so, of course, you just ate an entire bag of sea salt and vinegar chips to yourself that, listen, the other alternative is just doing heroin or doing hard drugs, doing cocaine. One of these things is going to be the only way that you get through the season of having young children without a support system. This constant exposure to noise and breaking up fights and having to clean and you never get a break and it's all unpredictable and you don't even get evenings as a break like your ancestor did, and you can't just throw them all outside because then CPS will come to your door with a bunch of nosy questions. It's literal torture, and it depletes your dopamine and it depletes your serotonin, and of course you're drinking soda and having junk food and your hand is back in that bag of Skittles again. You are just trying to survive. And that is where baby weight comes from, I think. Because that picture, put that picture up again of me back in the day. I did that. That's no support system weight. That's no village weight. That's not baby weight. That's no village weight. I weigh 40 pounds less now because I'm living the male influencer life. I'm living the podcast bro life. I actually have control over my schedule now, generally. So I can say, you know what? I'm feeling a little maxed out today. Like my big problem, it's like the podcast bro. It's like, I didn't get the, I'll never stop laughing at that. Didn't get the high speed equipment. Good. Like, wow. Oh my gosh. You're a hard man that you're able to get through those kind of challenges. But that is, now that my kids aren't little, I mean, let's face it, that is kind of my problems now. I mean, don't get me wrong, I do have some big problems, but they're not the kind of little, loud, constant, torturous problems that you have when you are the sole caretaker of babies and toddlers. That really is a unique type of mental duress that leaves you severely depleted in dopamine and serotonin. And so now I can do natural things to not have to eat an entire bag of pretzels to myself. I can feel that I'm getting overwhelmed by this. I am overwhelmed by all the people in my house, or that I have to socialize, or just there's just been a lot of interaction. I'm a very fragile person, in case you didn't get that from this episode. The boy in the bubble, like that's really how I should be living. Should be temperature controlled too. I don't want it to be like too cold in there. I'm the boy in the bubble, and when I have to get outside the bubble and deal with the real world in any way, I get terrifyingly overstimulated. And so now that I have some more control over my schedule and a bit more of a support system, I can just do things to de-stress my nervous system. I can go sit in my room and listen to a calming meditation or a bit of a prayer for a solid 15 minutes. And I know you moms who have young children, you want to cry just hearing that. You're like, what is 15 minutes? I don't even know what that block of time would look like. Might as well be 15 hours. Like I've lost all concept of anything over 4 seconds. I know, but so I have that now, and I can relax my nervous system through healthy methods. And so less often I have to resort to food and sugar, which alcohol is really under that umbrella. And that's why I drink Pims and lemonade. It's not as much about getting toe up. It's that it's sugar, and it has a very high, a very strong impact on me because it's sugar. So if you feel bad about the way you look, if you feel bad about your binging behavior, and you are in a situation where you cannot control your environment, you don't have a whole lot of control about your amount of free time, you cannot just say, hey, I'm feeling really overstimulated. My nervous system is absolutely on edge. I'm frazzled. And so sometime within the next 6 or so hours, I would like to take a full hour to myself to just de-stress and decompress and just breathe deeply and just get my nervous system calmed down so that I can be in a good place in terms of my relationship to food, in terms of my relationship to other people. That is what you need in modern life, because it's funny that modern people are kind of dismissive of the idea of self-care. Like, oh, what a weenie you are. You need your self-care time. Well, I would suggest that our nervous systems are way more bombarded with stimuli than any of our ancestors were ever. Again, if nothing else, we don't have darkness anymore, where the whole thing stops. Everything stops. When that sun goes down, not much is happening. And so your nervous system would have a letdown. Your nervous system would de-stress and get a little calmer just by the fact that there was no electricity. If you think I'm wrong, if you are thinking anything other than I'm getting a transcript of this episode tattooed on my arm because it's so truthful, if your take is anything other than that, just try it. One night, turn off every light in your house. No artificial light whatsoever. Do things only by candlelight, and you see how much of a difference it makes. You see how little you can get done. You see how calm your nervous system gets. It's also super boring. It's so boring. I would never, I was meant to live in the age of electricity. So boring. But even if you try to read a paper book, you're reading by candlelight. It's exhausting on your eyes. And your kids will go to sleep easier, though. Their nervous systems will calm down. Just try, do a Little House on the Prairie night. One night. And then contrast it to your typical night. Your typical night, in contrast to that, will feel like a rave. It'll feel like you're at a rave with like boom, sh, boom, sh, boom, sh, boom, sh, music and strobe lights and people screaming with glow sticks. Like that's what your normal evening will feel like compared to your evening with zero artificial light, with zero electricity. That's what it will feel like in comparison. And you will see, you'll really start to sense how much modern life is missing a natural calming mechanism by virtue of, we don't really have night anymore. When you think about night, is just not a thing, not in the classic definition. It's I mean, after we finish this pod, we're taping this in the evening, right before it's released. These are very timely episodes. We're taping this fewer than 12 hours before it's released. So it's evening right now. And I mean, I'll just go back to my house. I'm going to turn on all the lights. My house will be very bright. Night doesn't exist for the modern person. And your body really kind of depended on that time of total darkness to destimulate your nervous system, to get you into a calm place. And since we don't have that, I would suggest that regular times of respite, of doing whatever it is that recharges your batteries. I can't imagine what that would be other than sitting in a dark room with a screen and writing. But there must be, what, Caitlin, do you go for it? You probably do something healthy. You jog or you go for a hike or something?
Yeah, I go for a run.
Yeah.
Pop in
So
those
see,
headphones.
well, there you go. Okay, I've struggled with massive weight issues. Caitlin has never been overweight, and now we see why. So maybe for you, it's taking a walk or taking a jog or getting on your treadmill in the basement or whatever. Maybe you have a Peloton. I don't know. But I would suggest that this is not only is it not self-indulgent, but it is an actually critical piece for not just surviving, but for being sane in modern life. Your nervous system was not meant to be constantly bombarded the way it is. And that's true no matter what your lifestyle is. But if you add being a mother of young children on top of that, I mean, so it would be like if you just lived in a rave as far as your nervous system is concerned. Just noise and flashing light and pew, 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 like 24/7. You never know what's happening. And everyone around you is acting like they're on drugs. Literally what it's like. And of course you're overweight. Of course you're binge eating. Of course you just had a fifth helping of pasta. This is a lot of people in your position dealing with that kind of constant stimulus with no break would be on cocaine. So you need to congratulate yourself that you're only using food and the occasional glass of wine to get through it. Your nervous system is so out of sorts and so bent out of shape that it is crying for meth and heroin. Oh, I'm killing myself in the YouTube algorithm again. But your nervous system is like, seriously, let's do hard drugs because that's what it's going to take to get through this. And I think it's really commendable that you're just using a bag of Doritos. I think that's pretty amazing. And so I would like to suggest that that is one of the places where baby weight comes from. It's that your nervous system is constantly overstimulated with no break. This depletes your dopamine, it depletes your serotonin, and your body is constantly screaming at you. It's like, we've got to get a little serotonin here. This is getting very dark and very bad. And so you crack open a soda, and that works for a while. But then you have the sugar crash, and then you're back to mashed potatoes and whatever. So I just want to emphasize the importance of multiple times per day getting a break to do whatever will de-stimulate your nervous system. You will find this also helps you make better decisions. There's a lot of data that shows that when you make decisions in a high stress state, when your body is just stressed, your body has a lot of adrenaline going, a lot of cortisol going, you won't make good decisions. I have also noticed a lot of times when people feel distant from God, they're trying to pray, they're trying to be connected to their faith, and they're like, I don't think God exists, God is distant. It's like, I think your nervous system is just really overstimulated and you never get a break. And so when you go to pray, your mind is just like, ah! Of course you can't hear the voice of God. Your nervous system is just screaming because you're so overwhelmed. That it's not that God doesn't exist, it's that you can't hear him because you never get a break. You never get a chance to decompress your nervous system. Now, how you actually do that, I know it's hard. I know it's hard. If you have young children and you're broke and you don't have a nanny and you don't have a support system, I honestly, I'm not sure how you're going to make it happen, but I do think you should make it your top priority. Talk to your spouse about it. Be like, look, the minute you walk in the door, you are dealing with these kids for 2 hours. And I know that's a big ask, but I need to just go be a vegetable or take a jog or do whatever. Like, I have to have this. Make them listen to this podcast episode. And then, they'll get to the part where I was screaming suddenly for no reason. And they'll be like, you can have whatever you want if I just don't have to listen to this podcast episode anymore. But make whatever ask you have to ask. Set whatever goals you have to set. Do whatever you need to do to get that space to lower the physical stress level of your nervous system. And if you have young kids and you don't have a support system, this is your top priority. You don't have other priorities. This is your top priority because you will be making bad decisions. You will not be hearing the voice of God, and you'll probably be gaining a whole lot of quote unquote baby weight if you don't find ways to decompress. And you'll know you've hit it. You'll know you found the right amount of time and the right situation when you're in that physical space and you actually feel your body let down. Like you feel the stress leaving your body. For me, that is when I am sitting in my bed with my laptop open and my journal app up and I'm cozy and I'm not cold and I have a sweater on and I have 5 blankets over me and I have enough time. This is not like I have 5.2 minutes until I have to be back downstairs because someone needs me. It's like my time is expansive. I don't care what anyone wants from me right now because I feel like my time is infinite. I am not going to rush. I can take as much time as I need. And so, Caitlin, for you, do you get that feeling when you're jogging like that? Are there moments in your life when you feel like physically, I can feel the stress draining from my body? Do you experience that?
Yeah, when I go for a run, I do. Especially at the very end of it, like when I kind of come down from the run, it just like everything releases.
I've heard about this. Is that runner's high?
I would guess so. I mean, I don't know the science, but yeah, I would assume.
That doesn't happen for me, by the way. Like I go running and I'm like, I really hated that and I feel like I wasted my time. So it's different things for different people. Running is not going to be it for everyone, but maybe for you it is. Or maybe you want to be in a blanket cocoon and live your fantasy of being just a brain in a jar, like I do. Whatever it is, you'll know you've hit it when, and for some of you, it's been so long, you probably don't even remember what this feels like, but it's just like, it's like a flow. Like you just, you feel the anger and the resentment and the anxiety and the stress and that feeling that it's all up to you and I'm behind and I didn't do enough and I'm in a hurry. You feel it all draining from your body. Your top priority is to find what gets you into that state and make space for it all the time. All the time. And if anyone is dismissive of you about it, like you sound kind of spoiled, ooh, self-care, like that sounds kind of selfish, you kick them in the shins. And you tell them that they need to listen to the Jen Fulwiler show. And then once they see how wrong they are, they can leave a review on Apple Podcasts and be like, I was so wrong. People do need much more time than I realized for self-care because their nervous systems are constantly overstimulated. You do that. And I know you think, well, when would Jen, you don't understand my life. When would I have time to do that? I don't know. I'm saying find a way because your health will improve. Seriously. I mean, there are studies that show that de-stressing your immune system, de-stressing your nervous system, letting go of those feelings of stress and anxiety, that it actually strengthens your immune system. You can fight off viruses and all that much better. It will improve your health. It will improve your spiritual life. It will improve your relationship with your children. It will improve your intimate life in all areas. And I actually think it will also improve your finances, whether you earn money or not. If you earn money, I think you'll earn more money, because going back to the spiritual thing, you'll just be more inspired with the right ideas, because your nervous system is not going, at God. Sorry, guys. But that's what it's like. I don't know another way to convey it, because your nervous system is not doing that at God every time you try to discern anything. And so you'll get inspired to like make the right move. Or if you don't bring in an income, you'll just need to spend less. Similarly to how you won't binge eat quite as much. It'll just be like, I don't have to go buy 5 things on Amazon because I'm just stressed and I need that dopamine hit. So this is your top priority. Find out what gives you that feeling of the stress just flowing out of your body, and make time for it all the time, at least once a day, preferably more than once a day. All right, that is it for this fine episode. We are going straight into the after party. That is where we hang out with our Patreon friends, and I continue on this subject or I go on something related to it. It's a lot of fun, and you can sign up at patreon.com/thisisjen. We have a couple different levels of bonus content, and we have fun with all of it. And of course, get your tickets to my tour. Just announced the Austin show, filming the special in Houston. All of that is at jfcomedytour.com, and we will be back with you next week.